Right. So today we're going to focus S3, mainly the hands-on exercise. So in the hands-on exercise, we will talk about how we can create the S3 buckets. As soon as you create the S3 bucket, we try to load the images and then try to access the images in a different way. If you remember, like by the time we launch the EC2 instances, we are trying to access the EC2 instances by using the public IP, and then also trying to log in or connect the EC2 instances using various options like SSH, using the PowerShell, SSH using the PuTTY logins, right? So the same way we will try to access the images which are being loaded into the S3 bucket, use the public URL as well as the pre-signed URLs. I'll explain you what is pre-signed URL as well as the public URLs. Okay, so whenever you try to load an object into the S3 bucket, each object has a public URL which you can access. Each object will also have the pre-signed URL which you can directly access without the security restrictions. And if you're getting the access forwarded error for using trying to access the objects using the public URL, then we might have to fix the bucket policies. So I'll show you how we can fix those bucket policies, how we can update those bucket policies as well. And then we will also see how we can host one of the static websites. Static website in the sense, like assume that you have one of the HTML file called index.html that you wanted to host it on your S3, call that as the static website. You can load the file into the S3 bucket and that file will give you one of the public URL. We're going to see that one as well. And then versioning. Okay, so you can have one bucket and try to keep loading the same object, which is nothing but same key file in multiple times. Then each time you try to load the file into the bucket, you will have a different versions are getting generated. And the next one is replication. We have talked about replication. We'll also take a look at the replication for same region replication as well as the cross region replications. When you try to create the replications, even though S3 comes from the global services, the bucket is going to sit on the region that you are creating. So by the time you create or by the time you try to work out the cross region replications, you will have to create the target bucket in a different regions and then source bucket in a different region. So you have two buckets sitting on the two regions. Try to have the replication set up between these two. So when you try to load the files into your source region, it is automatically getting replicated into the target regions. And we'll also take a look at the storage class as well. So this comes again when you try to create your bucket, you have an options of choosing the storage class, whether you wanted to go for standard access, standard infrequent, or you wanted to keep your data in one zone access, or you wanted to plan for archiving the data, which is going to give you minimized cost of managing the data in the S3. And we'll also see how we can try to create an order for snowmobile, because I'm not going to place an order for snowmobile, because the moment you start placing an order, you are requesting actual physical devices to your address, saying that you want to transfer some data using any one of the three devices which we talk about. So I can go up to the order summary page, but I'm not going to click on the submit button. I'll show you how we can try to place or try to play around these snowmobile services as well. Perfect. Any questions so far? So try to log into your management console. So it is advised to use your IAM user, but I'm using my root user. That's okay for me. So since I set up the multi-factor authentication, it's asking me to enter the multi-factor authentication code. So here I got my multi-factor authentication code from my mobility devices. So here, as soon as you land on your AWS management console page, try to search the services that you wanted to create. that you want to work on it. So here in this case, we're going to look after the S3. So I typed the S3 in the search button. Now we are on the S3 homepage here. Buckets. I already have a couple of buckets which is sitting for almost last 2.5 years. I'm not going to touch upon it, but let me see this one. I'm creating a new bucket here. Can you suggest a good bucket name, guys? Anyone? So remember, this bucket name is unique name. Okay, the bucket name must be globally unique and must not contain spaces or uppercase letters. And you can see the rules of bucket name here. We click on the other link closer to your bucket. You can see the bucket name here. So the bucket name must be between 3 to maximum of 3. That is 63 characters long. You can have 3 to 63 characters long and can consist of lower cases, numbers, dot, and hyphens. There is no special characters are allowed. So you can follow the naming conventions before you name your S3 bucket. Remember, the bucket name have to be globally unique. Okay. So an example, if I'm trying to say demo. Okay. So if this is a demo of my bucket name, I'm trying to have it on my, the demo is not a good name. So let me use AWS demo S3 bucket. Okay, this is my bucket name. And copy settings from existing bucket. No, I don't have an existing bucket, though I have the bucket existing bucket, but I don't want to copy any settings. The object ownership, just for timing, leave it as it is, just like that. Don't make any changes. And if you come here, we are blocking all public access on this bucket. Okay, I'm creating the bucket, but I'm blocking all the public access, not enabling the versions here. Just leave it. And the encryptions, yesterday we talked about in detail about the encryptions. Here we have the server-side encryptions S3. So when you try to load the objects into the data lake, you can use the keys in the key management services, or you can let AWS to manage the keys. Then you can go for S3 server-side encryption S3. Okay, so these guys, this time I'm going to use Amazon S3 managed keys. I don't have any keys and I don't want to do the key management, so I'm going to use Amazon S3 managed keys. So by default, if I'm choosing this option, S3 is going to make sure my object is being encrypted. My object is being decrypted by the time I try to retrieve the object from my bucket. Okay, so here, and then bucket key, I'm not doing anything, just simply create the bucket. So what is it saying? Bucket with the same name is already exists. See, I told you, right? The bucket name have to be globally unique. Means that this bucket name has been taken by somebody. Okay. So that's where I was asking, guys, can you get some of the good names for bucket? I can put the bucket name here. AWS demo -S3 bucket -February -2023. Okay. It's a long name. I'm creating the bucket now. My bucket got created. What is the bucket we created? AWS -S3 AWS demo -S3 bucket -February -2023. So this is the bucket that we have created now. I'm opening the bucket. You can play around the bucket properties. Okay. So as of now, we don't have any object in the bucket. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to load one of the object into my bucket here. So you can choose a button called upload. So here you can use add files, or you wanted to add a folder underneath your bucket, you can do that, right? You wanted to keep a folder structure underneath your bucket, Same as like C drive, same as like Google Drive. Like if you are using the Google Drive, you know how you want to organize your file storages. For different purposes, you try to create a different folder. So same way you wanted to have a different folder structure within your S3 bucket, you can keep adding as many as folder within the bucket and try to load the relevant file inside individual folders. Now I don't want to get into the folder structure now, but I'm going to look after only the file information or object loading informations here. So I'm trying to search one of the object that I can load. For example, I'm loading this image. So my image got loaded here. So they are not uploaded the specified object. What happens? A specified object is there. Add file. Let me leave this one. That's okay here. So you know what? I can use the upload and so there is a button called upload here. I did upload that my object. Now what we have done, we created the S3 bucket. Underneath the bucket that we have loaded an image, right? So if I can open up the image, this image has got the object URL. Okay, so this is one of the URL that you can access, and the bucket properties, I'll come here because it says that since we did not enable the versioning, it's clearly saying that if you look into the versioning here, the bucket properties, especially the bucket versioning, it's clearly saying that bucket doesn't have bucket versioning enabled. Yes, we did not enable the bucket versioning. So for time being, just skip that. And storage class, we did not define any storage class. By default, it is taking the standard storage class. So standard storage class in the sense it is an instant access. You try to access the object within the S3 bucket, it is giving you an instant access. And server-side encryption setting, by the time we created the bucket, we have kept the S3 manage the keys because we don't want to manage the encryption keys. We are leaving S3 itself to manage the keys. So I'm choosing server-side encryption S3. Okay, the encryption is happening on the cloud side. We are not encrypting. Did we load any encrypted images? Did we load any encrypted file? No, we haven't loaded any encrypted images. We loaded only the plain objects, right? But the encryption for the object is being taken care by S3 itself because S3 is managing the keys, right? So these are things. Now let me look at how we can access this. So S3 URI. All right, it's not a way to access. Where is it? Now you will get an access denied error. You know what? Why are we getting this access denied error? If you remember, by the time we created the bucket, we gave block all public access. Remember, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, sure. So here, I'll try to open. I'm able to access this image or the file loaded using the open options. What does this mean? How I'm able to access using the open option, but not using the public URL. Okay, so this file, this image has got a public URL, right? But when I'm using the public URL or object URL, it's not accessible. But then when I was trying to open it, it is opening here. What is the reason? Because this is the pre-signed URL. Pre-signed URL in the sense you are loading the file, but you are trying to give an access to the object that's been loaded into the S3, which has the token in it. Token in the sense it's a kind of keys are being attached with that URL. So if you closely look at this one, you have the token here, right? The security token. So there is a lengthy URL here. Okay. So this is nothing but your token is being attached with your header request. So by the time you try to use or by the time you try to access your file using this pre-signed URL, it is validating the token, and the token, since it is a valid token, and it is giving you to let access the file, right? But it's not the same as the public URL access, because public URL access you are blocking all the public, but the other option you are trying to use the pre-signed URL. This is a pre-signed URL. Pre-signed URL comes with the security token on your header request itself. On the request itself, your token ID is being attached. Okay, well, since this is coming with the pre-signed URL, you are being enabled to access the object is loaded into the S3 bucket. But the same object you're trying to access using the URL, it is not working because you block all the public access. So far clear?
Yes, and Sadil, I have one question.
Yes.
Shall we modify the properties once we created the bucket?
Yes, you can. That's what I'm going to show you now. Okay.
Okay,
So
got
if
it.
you can see here, object owner, read, write, and then for public, everything is blocked. Okay. We don't have options here. Now what we're going to see, we are going back to the bucket. That's the property. So let me go to the permissions, then yes. So on the permissions, if you look at here, block public access, it is blocking all the public access. I'm trying to enable this one. Okay. So I'm not blocking any public access. So save changes. Form. It is being confirmed now. Okay. Now let me try to access. So still it is not accessible. Now let me look at the bucket policies. Okay. Where is the bucket policy? Yes, it is here. Okay. We don't have any bucket policies, right? Because when you want to enable the public access of any of your objects, you should also, your policy should also allow that one. Okay. So now what I can do is that I'll try to use the policy generator here. Okay. So S3 bucket policy, what we're trying to generate is bucket policy. Effect is allow. The principle is I'm giving access to all the resources. Okay. And Amazon S3, select the action. Action is what action we wanted to choose. So we want just to retrieve the objects, right? So what I can do, I can just go ahead and select the action called get object. Okay, so say I have chosen these options and the Amazon resource, I can go back here. So this is my bucket AR. Okay. So this is my bucket AR. Add the statement, generate the policies. It has got generated. The policy got generated. Okay. Now close. Coming back. Enter the policies. Now save changes. What is the error is displaying? An unexpected error occurred. API response. Action does not apply to any resources in the statement. Yes, you have to make sure that it is being applied to the resources. Resources is nothing but your individual objects inside the bucket. Okay, so I'm giving an access to all the resources underneath this bucket. Now save changes. It's good, right? We have enabled the public access, and also my bucket policy saying that anyone can access. Who is this principal? Anybody can access. Okay, and what action they can do? It is get object from the S3. And what is the bucket? And this is my bucket name. Okay, on this bucket, any of the bucket underneath the bucket or any of the objects underneath this bucket can be retrieved publicly. Okay, so let's go out and verify that one. Where is the, yeah, this is, see here, now it's got. So whereas we got access denied error, now that we fixed the public bucket policy as well as the public access, and I was able to access the object publicly. Now I can give you this URL to you as well. So just go ahead and verify and confirm if you can also access. Can you quickly confirm? Yeah, you got to unmute and say if it is working, not working. Because sometimes I don't look.
Yeah, Sindhu, it's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, it's working, Sidhu.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's a booster for me. Okay, so it's working.
Sandil, could you please put the policy alone in the chat, the one that you created?
Yeah, so normally know what you can do for policy generation. I can give you here, simple, or you can use the policy generator as well. Okay, so this is the one you want, the policy generator.
No. I think I gave the policy gen link on the first day of the class, but that session is closed, unfortunately. But you can just give me the policy alone.
Yeah, you need the policy alone. Okay, so
yeah.
let me bring you the policy here. Okay. So policy is nothing but your permissions. So you are allowing the effect is allow principal is star in the sense it's allowing all the users as well as all the services in the AWS. The AWS has got more than 200 plus services. So you are giving an access to all the users as well as all the services within the AWS to access or perform these actions. And the action is S3 get object. Get object in the sense it's a reading an object. And against what resource? Resource is your bucket name, ARM bucket name, Amazon resource number, AWS S3, AWS demo S3 bucket, February 2023 is your bucket name here. Perfect. So we have seen that one. Now we'll also see how we can host the static website, right? So for hosting the static website, you need the index.html or any HTML file, right? So when it comes for .html file, that's something that you can open it on your browser, right? So what I can do now, I'll try to load one of the HTML files. So I just formulated one of the small HTML file here. So if you want, for your play around, sorry. I think I should open it with the Notepad. I'm going to give you the file, okay? So use this file for your just save it as start HTML, and here I'm using the AWS image. So this is the image I have it with me, right? So let me try to I don't want too many files here, so let me rename this one. So say just HTML index.html. But then I try to load my index.html file here, come down and load it. Perfect. So we just loaded the file. Okay. If you look at here, I want to check, what is the image I have it inside this file. So I have AWS image.jpg. Okay, that's fine. So AWS.image, and the same image I have loaded here as well. Now go to properties. And all the way, if you come down, you have hosting the static website. Okay, so hosting the static website in the sense, you can probably see what content we have on this HTML file. So let me try to open it in the browser. So this is the content I have. Okay, I'm running a small business which I have static websites. I wanted to host this website, and I wanted to share these URL informations to my customer, as I'm not doing too much of changes on my catalog or on my product pricing items. Then I can host in a static website, and I can refer this website to my customers, right? So I think this is the business scenarios. Now what I have done, I tried to load the HTML equivalent HTML file into my S3 bucket. On the properties, there is an option called hosting the static website here. Now hosting the static website is currently disabled. I'm going to edit it here. I'm enabling it. Okay, I'm enabling it. It's asking hosting a static website. Yes, of course, I'm hosting the static website, and asking what document is that. So I'll say it is index.html because that's the file we loaded, right? Index.html. So just save it. Now all the way come here, and you have your bucket website endpoints, right? So this is the bucket website endpoint. Let me try to access. See here. Now this is my website, right? So I'm going to give you these informations as well. So try to check if we can access. So we all know that the hosting the static website is success.
Yes, Anil, it works.
It works, right? So this is how you can host your static website. Okay, so what you can do nicely, you can design the HTML pages, and you name your bucket accordingly. Okay, so example, somebody don't want to have a feeling that whether they are giving some rubbish information, or whether your bucket name looks to be a proper website information, then try to name your bucket uniquely in a way that it is actually looking like a real website or real domain names. Then your static URL is gonna look like this. So share this URL with anyone, then they should be able to access. So this is how you can host the static website on your S3 bucket. And you can also host the dynamic website, right? But hosting the dynamic website, I would recommend using EC2 instances. I think in the first session of EC2 instances hands-on exercise we have seen, we created one of the EC2 instances. By the time we tried to launch the instances, we were also trying to install the web server, HTTPS web server. We installed the web server, and then what we have done is that we just try to create one of the HTML files. We did not go in detail of looking at how we can host the dynamic websites. So that will take another 1 hour or 1.5 hours of time to show you, but you can host the same way. How we are trying to host the static website, what you have to do is that you have to have the templates for dynamic websites. So once you have the templates, you try to set up your EC2 instance and try to set up or try to install the HTTP server on it. And once you have both your EC2 virtual machines as well as a web server is running on it, and then you try to load the dynamic templates, and you should get DNS, or you should get the URL information to access your dynamic websites. Okay, and you want to host or you want to link your application to the backend databases, you can do that with the Dynamo databases or RDS databases based on your database capability. Okay, so you are good in designing the databases, then go for RDS, because RDS comes with the SQL capability. And you want to have no SQL, saying that, hey, I don't have too much understanding of SQLs and all, but I still wanted to host my application which should be interact with the backend databases. Then go for DynamoDB. DynamoDB is one of the kind of document DB or no column DBs, or no SQL DBs, which means that it doesn't require much of technical understanding to use the DB. As simple as like that, know how you can use your Excel sheet. Same way you can try to use your DynamoDB, but which is gonna post a lot of data, which is um, which is dynamically scalable to hold a huge amount of data volume on that. Okay, but let's not get into the discussion. So the objective of today's session is to foresee how we can host static website using one of the static HTML files. That's we have seen it now. So what you have to do now, what you have to have it on the S3 bucket, you have to have the HTML index.html file, and if looking at the file content, you are also referring this image as well. So make sure that your referring image is loaded in the same bucket as on your HTML file. So then it should work. Now let's see, versioning, right? So far we have seen.
I'm having a doubt, Cyril.
Yeah.
I'm having some issues with the bucket policy. Can I share my screen?
Okay. Okay, maybe.
We could do it to the last year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I can complete the session and come back to you guys for questioners. Okay, if that's okay. Right. So let's see versioning. Okay. Now this bucket doesn't have any versioning, right? So go to the properties. See here. My versioning is currently disabled, right? So versioning is a means of keeping multiple variant of an object in the same bucket. Okay, you wanted to keep multiple versions of the same object in the same bucket, then versioning is going to help you. It is same as like how you prepare your design documentation. So your design document starts from version 1, and by the time you get more and more of your inputs from your business team or from your IT team, you keep changing your design documents and you keep updating the version. Same way here as well. So you have one of your S3 bucket, and the time over the period of time you keep loading the files, and different versions of the file getting is loaded, and different versions is getting generated or maintained in the same bucket. So you can use versioning to preserve, retrieve, and restore every version of every object stored in your S3 bucket. With versioning, you can easily recover from both unintended user actions and application failure. Unintended user action in the sense it is an accidental deletion. For example, by mistakenly or without knowing it or unintentionally, you are deleting the file, and S3 is giving you an option to recover the file only when you enable the versions. If you did not enable the version, there is no way of recovering the file, but if you could have enabled the bucket versioning, you should be able to track and you can retrieve all the files that you have accidentally deleted. Okay. And here the multi-factor authentications. I'll come now. So I'm enabling the versions. So after enabling the bucket versions, you might need to update your lifecycle rules to manage the previous version of an object. Okay. Save changes. Now I enabled the versions, right? So there is a red warning here, which means that my bucket is publicly accessible. Anyone can access my bucket. Only reading the objects. You can read this object, but you cannot try to load an object into my bucket because that action is not being allowed as per my bucket policies, right? Okay. So now show versions. See here, I don't have any versions now. Okay, so as of now, I don't have any versions because only these two objects are being loaded into my bucket. Now, I'll try to load one of the same file here. So I loaded. So this is the recent time just we got loaded the files. If I click the versions, you can see the file now, right? So here version ID is null because by the time we loaded these images, we did not enable the versions. If you did not enable the versions, which means that version is suspended, right? the versioning for your bucket was suspended, so it did not generate any version ID. That's the reason you do not see any version ID for both html.index as well as AWS image.jpg file. Now we loaded another file after enabling the versions, and the version got generated here. Okay, the version ID got generated here. So now let's go ahead and do one more thing. I'm deleting it. Okay. Delete object. I deleted. So currently it is showing only the current object because I have deleted the other objects, right? Got it. Okay, sure. So this is the way we can see the versioning of the S3 bucket. And I try to load the objects, same object here. So 1 second, I'll go to the upload. Load the same object. So versions, I should be able to see the version ID for both because these two objects are being loaded into the bucket after enabling the versions. Okay, so this is the versions here. Let me see what actions I can do here. Download, share with the pre-signed URL. So remember that we have the pre-signed URL, right? So when I say pre-signed URL, so create the pre-signed URLs. For example, you wanted to give an access to your starting website only to particular person for a particular time, then you can do that as well. Say you can say like I wanted to give this information access to for next 5 minutes. Okay. Remember, sometimes we say, what, the link is gonna be valid for only 5 minutes. How we can do that? You can create the pre-signed URLs and just say, the number of minutes is equivalent to how many minutes that you want to schedule. I think the number of minutes is gonna be between 1 to 720. Okay. So once you do that, create the pre-signed URL. When you have the pre-signed URLs, copy, you can access. This pre-signed URL is only for 5 minutes because by the time we created the pre-signed URL, we gave the time limit of 5 minutes, right? Right. So let's take a look at the replication. So we have two types of replication. One is same region replication, another one is the cross region replications. As I said, same region replication in the sense both source bucket as well as target bucket is sitting in the same regions, and you wanted to make sure that the replication is happening from source to target. So set up the replication rules in the source bucket. As soon as you set up the rules in the source bucket, that replication is helping in copying the files or objects are getting loaded in the source bucket is automatically transferred into your target bucket. So that you can do it both in the same region as well as in the cross region. So now let's take a look at the cross region replications. Cross regions, we know like source bucket is going to stay on one region. The target bucket should be on the other region. So let me try to show you how to create the source bucket in one region and target bucket in the other region. So let me say the source bucket, AWS S3 source bucket version 1. I'm creating the source bucket in the CS Center 1 region. Let's not make any other changes, but do not forget to enable the bucket versioning. For replication, bucket versioning is important. Without bucket versioning, the replication is not going to work. to create your source bucket in the CA-Central1 region. Bucket got created. Now let me create another bucket. So instead of source, I am saying it is a target bucket. That is AWS S3 target bucket version 1. This time I'm going to choose a different region, that is US East Northern Virginia. US East 1 Northern Virginia region. And here saying come down and enable the versioning for the target region as well. Create the bucket. Now that if you see my bucket list, I have both source bucket as well as the target bucket. Source bucket is sitting on the CA-Central1 region and target bucket is sitting on the US East Virginia region. So let me try to set up the replication. So I want to replicate from my source bucket into the target bucket. Open up the bucket and go to the management tab. Underneath the management tab, you have the replication tools here. Click on the replication tool and say the rule name is replication -demo rule, something like that. Okay, the status is enabled. So apply to all objects. Whether this replication rule has to be applied to specific object or all objects. So I'm choosing all objects and choose the bucket in this account. Yes, I want to choose the bucket in this account. So let me say this is my target bucket. So here, so the moment I enter the target bucket, it is automatically populating the destination region. The destination region is US East 1. Here, enter the IAM role. I don't have any IAM role, so I'll try to create one of the IAM role as part of the replications. That will be taken care by AWS, and rest all is good. Okay, so click save button, and your replication role is being set up. It's asking one more pop-up, replication existing object. So existing object, you wanted to replicate all the existing object on your source bucket as part of the replication. You can choose yes. If you don't want to replicate the existing object, but you wanted to apply the replication for upcoming all the object uploading, then you can choose no. So anyhow, at this time, I don't have any object in my bucket. So I'm choosing no, submit. My replication tool is being set up. Now let us try to go out and test whether the replication is working or not. So I'm on my source bucket. Try to load the file. So let me try to load one of my file. The AWS image I'm trying to load. So upload. My object got loaded into the source bucket. Okay. Now let me try to open a target bucket in a different region. So this is my object in the source bucket. And open. So the target bucket, the moment I click the refresh button, I can see the image got automatically loaded into the target bucket. So now I can show you the versioning as well. So once you enable the versioning, and you can see the version ID, and you can try to verify whether the same version ID has been loaded in the target bucket. Go to the target bucket on the other tab and click the versioning, and it's going to display the same versioning. Now, if you try to load the same file in multiple times, we know that as part of versioning, you will get multiple versions. So let us try to do that as well. I'm clicking the load button in the source bucket. Once again, let me try to load the same file or same object. Load it. Now this time you will have the same key, that is same object, but you have different versions, right? Enable the version and you can see the two versions. And this is your older version and this is the latest version. Now let me go to the target bucket and try to refresh. You can clearly see the newer file or newer object has been refreshed into the, or has been uploaded into the, or updated into the target bucket. Okay, so this is how the region, the cross region replication is working, and you can try to play around the replication for the same region. In case of same region, you have to create both source bucket as well as target bucket in the same region and try to enable the replication rule in the source bucket or whichever the bucket you want to replicate. Then next one is the storage class. Okay, so go to the management, you can see the storage class here, the lifecycle rules, right? So I think we have seen some time back, this bucket is created with the standard access properties. Go to the property and you can see we have seen the storage class of the bucket, which was marked as standard. Yeah, so yeah, the storage class for this bucket is standard. So you want to change the storage class. To go to the management, and you can configure your life cycle. Okay, so this replica rules, it says the replica rule name, this is the one destination bucket is demo. Okay, so where is, yeah, so we are here. Okay, so the destination bucket is got Virginia, priority, entire bucket, same as source, replication time control disabled, aim, simple target. Okay, it should work. Not sure if it is not working, so I'll figure out and come back. But here, the life cycle, right? Create the life cycle. Go to the life cycle and say S3 storage standard to outside, something like this. Okay. Apply to all the objects. So the rule actions, move current object, version of object between the different storage class. Choose whatever it is suits for you. Okay. So here is where I'm going to define. Choose the storage class transition. So from which class to which class you wanted to transition, right? So currently now we are on the standard. So it says standard infrequent access. Okay. So we are currently on the storage, the standard storage class. Okay. Our bucket is created as standard storage class. Now I wanted to transition these objects within the bucket from standard bucket into standard infrequent access. Okay, so I can add another transition if I wanted to make my objects from intelligent tiering to say standard in the sense I can configure number of days here, right? Say after 30 days. Okay, so if my object is sitting in this bucket on the standard class for 35 days, after 35 days my object will be moved as the standard infrequent access, right? And one zone infrequent access. So after 70 days I wanted to move the object from the standard infrequent access into one zone infrequent access. I can do that. So if I want to keep adding the storage class transition, I can do that. Create the rule, just create it, and you leave the rules displayed on your bucket. As long as the objects are meeting the timeline, it will automatically, your bucket will automatically move the objects from one storage class to another storage class. Now currently it is on the standard storage class, but if you are leaving this object 35 days, and after the 35 days your object is getting moved from standard storage class into standard infrequent access storage class. IA is infrequent access storage class. Okay, which means that you are not accessing the objects frequently. If you are not accessing the objects frequently, you are moving the object from standard into infrequent access. So infrequent access, which is a little cheaper than the standard storage class. Standard storage class is expensive S3 storage class pricing. In terms of pricing, standard is the expensive pricing in S3, and then it goes on the standard infrequent access, standard infrequent one zone infrequent access, and then deep archival or archival and deep archival. These are the cheaper or relatively lesser price S3 storage options. So now I have created the lifecycle rules. So my lifecycle rule is enabled here. So my lifecycle rule name is standard to archival. So status is saying enabled. The scope is entire bucket. Entire bucket in the sense whichever the bucket, whichever the repository you create under the same bucket, or number of objects you try to load it under the same bucket, this policy has been applied. This lifecycle rule has been applied for all the directory as well as objects under the same bucket. So the current version actions transition to in standard infrequent access, then one zone infrequent access. My objects are currently in the standard class. I'm saying first, transfer my objects from standard class into standard infrequent access after 35 days, and then from standard infrequent access into one zone infrequent access after 70 days. So this is my lifecycle rule has been created here. You can see the lifecycle rule configurations, and you'll see the Snow device. The Snow family. I'm not going to place an order because I told you, like, if we place an order, it's like we are looking for actual devices to our premises, right? So in the Snow device, we have got Snow Cone, which is up to 8 TB. Snowball has a 40 TB and 80 TB capacity, and Snow Mobile, which is the petabyte capacity. You have a larger volume of data that you want to transfer to AWS, then choose any one of the options to physically transfer the data from your on-premises to AWS cloud here. So order and AWS no. So AWS yes, sorry, the Snow demo. Okay, something like this. And import where you wanted to import. You wanted to import into Amazon S3, right? So I'm choosing import into Amazon S3. Go on next one. And here you have an option to choose the device you want, which device you want, whether you wanted to go for Snow Cone, which comes with 8 GB and 4 GB memory, which has 2 CPUs, or Snow Cone SSD. Snow Cone, you have got HDD and the SSD. So SSD comes with the storage of 14 TB here. HDD comes with the storage capacity of 8 TB here, and that's the only difference between HDD and SSD, solid state drive. In case of Snowball device, we got in a Snowball Edge and Snowball Compute Optimized. Okay, for Compute Optimized or Edge Optimized, the differentiation is the memory. Look at the memory here. You've got the Edge Optimized device, which has got 32 GB. In case of Compute Optimized, we got 200 plus GB, and storage is 39.5. That is 40 TB here, and the Edge Optimized storage we got 80 TB here. Okay, the Compute Optimized you got 52 core CPUs, and here it is only 24 CPUs. So based on your the data transfer demand, you can choose Snowball Edge or Snowball Compute Optimized. I think they have one more as well. I didn't know this one. The third one, Snowball Edge Compute Optimized with the GPU. So choose whichever the option suits for you. Then go ahead and create the order here. Okay, and which bucket you want to load the data. So you have your bucket which is sitting on the same regions.
I have a question, Chandra.
Yeah. So next,
So what are you basically doing here with the Snow Cone, Snow Mobile, Snowball Edge? So we're getting the data from S3.
No,
and
you so you have large volume of data on your on-premises. Okay.
Okay.
You have large volume of the data sitting on your on-premises data center.
Okay.
And you want to transfer this data into AWS cloud.
Okay.
Okay. So for transferring this data into AWS cloud, since the volume of the data is too huge, the same conversation we have covered on yesterday's session also.
Yeah.
So we have got a huge volume of the data to be transferred. So if you try to do it over the VPN connection, it is going to take ages and ages, right? Because your VPN comes with maximum of what, 1 GB or 500 MB data speed. So with the 500 MB or 1 GB, transferring the petabytes of data, it is going to take months and months to transfer the data from your on-premises into cloud, right? So you want to instantly transfer the data then you can go for ordering any of the physical devices. You can also have dedicated connection as well. Now, most of the organizations, that's what they use it. They have something called AWS Direct. Okay, so if you can do AWS Direct here,
That is like connecting between two VPCs, right? Sorry, one internal VPC to one public VPC, if I'm not wrong.
so AWS Connect, it is an easy way to establish the dedicated network connection from your on-premises to AWS. The whole line is dedicated to you. Okay, using the AWS Direct Connect, you can establish private connection between AWS and your data center or office or location.
Okay.
So it is
But
the
do we have a limit?
physical, it is a physical cable connection from your on-premises to AWS. So for laying the physical connections, you will have to place an order, and they have to engage some of the vendors or some of the telecom service provider, because they want to lay a new line for you. That line is entirely for you. It will take minimum of 1 to 2 months, up to 24 months also.
Okay. But do they have any limitations on only this amount of bandwidth or data can be transferred or
So
migrated?
on the direct connect, I think the maximum speed is 10 GB, 10 gigabytes. I've seen somewhere. Yeah, see here. So AWS Direct Connect make it easy to scale your connection to meet your needs. AWS Direct Connect provides 1 gigabytes of GB and 10 GB connections. Okay, so you can have these two speeds, 1 GB speed connection or 10 GB speed connection. But this is much expensive, because you have to lay a new line, right? So rather than laying a new line, and if it is your data transfer is it's just a one-time activity, right? You don't want to hustle the data transfer from your on-premises to cloud, but it's just the entire data migration from your on-premises, 40 TB, 80 TB, or petabytes of data migration from your on-premises into cloud. Then better option is to go for adding any one of the Snow devices, because Snow devices are easy and quicker and less expensive compared to other services. If you're going for AWS Direct Connect, which is much expensive services, because you got to engage the number of operator, they have to lay a line, they have to work on the licensing or procurement, all the regulatory approvals and all. And if it is going to be one-time data transfer, the AWS Direct Connect is not making a sense, because it's just one-time data transfer, right?